So I was just having a conversation about how it's actually pretty crazy if you think about it, but most most oh man, most soldiers in human history, and this is not an exaggeration, most soldiers in human history have absolutely no fucking chance to beat modern day UFC fighters. And it's actually kind of crazy. Like, take Alex Pereira, for example. Alex Pereira is like a top 10 most dangerous person in human history. That's actually pretty fucking nuts. And then let's go down from there, because I know this sounds kind of controversial, but I thought that I would make a tier list on different sort of warriors that I would be able to beat throughout human history. Okay? All the way up until MMA today. All the way up until modern day warriors. We're talking Navy SEALs. We're talking the Cowboys gunslinging at the salty Spitoon and doing their duels. We're talking about the Musketeers. We're talking about the Samurais. And we're talking about the Spartans. And so we're basically going to rank which sort of warriors would have the worst ability to beat me and the best ability to beat me. S tier, if I put you in the S tier. If you go in the S tier, that means I'm beating you. So, yeah, let's get into this. Let me just be very clear about this. This is not a fight to the death with these warriors because, of course, they have the killer instinct. They're crafty. This is an MMA fight. How would I do in a MMA fight with MMA rules against these old warriors? Modern warriors, we'll talk about all different types of warriors. How would I do in an MMA fight? No eye gouging, no nut shots. All right, no weapons. Obviously, no weapons because every single one of these guys would beat me. But let's talk about this. Spartans. I'm putting the Spartans, and I'm being serious. So let me explain my background. I've done 2 years of kickboxing. So for 2 years straight, I kickboxed. It's been about 4 years since I was doing that consistently. So let's say 2 years of rusty Muay Thai, okay? Because it's rusty. And about a couple of years of judo back in the day. So that's my background. What the fuck is a Spartan gonna do to me? Seriously, like in an MMA fight, okay? We're not eye gouging. I know the Spartans have the killer mentality because they're actual killers. And I know they're tough and you know, these are guys that had like test levels over 1,000. Someone mentioned that when I was, you know, doing my stream earlier today. They were like, dude, these guys had like super high T levels. Okay. And they still have the same heads. They still have a skull. They have.
You have a 2 heads.
I honestly think I beat a Spartan in a fight. Think about it. People back then, they were, I'm pretty sure, like smaller in stature. People didn't lift weights. So it's not like there were just people rolling around sauced up to the gills, 250 pounds, and happened to do a little bit of boxing. There was no boxing back in the day. There was no boxing thousands of years ago, okay? There was no boxing 1,000 years ago. People weren't doing that. I'd be freaking hard-pressed to find someone throw a nice solid jab 1,000 years ago. Okay, so the Spartans weren't boxing. And now we're going to think about the kicks. What kind of kicks were the Spartans throwing? I can imagine a kick that a Spartan would throw would be the same type of freaking technique that a toddler would throw with a freaking cartwheel kick when you're wrestling around with your brother when you're a toddler. Okay? Little flimsy cartwheel style of kicks. These guys weren't putting sting on it. They weren't, you know, twisting the hips over and turning over with a freaking roundhouse kick. All right? Who would have taught him? That's the thing. It's like, again, people are going to make a response to this. There's going to be people in the comments saying, dude, you're so delusional, man. What are you saying, man? What type of technique did these guys have? I would have a real solid, crispy, technical roundhouse kick. I'd have a nice leg kick. And I'd also have a decent jab. And I honestly feel like with those two tools alone and underhooks, because this is the thing. This is how I imagine the Spartans would be able to fight. I imagine, again, there are people on YouTube that are going to take this video and they're actually going to make the argument that, dude, come on, you get your ass handed to you. Spartans knew what they were doing, man. They were absolute killers. Yeah, with a sword. They knew how to fight with a sword. What was the wrestling like? They weren't going for freaking Imanari rolls and, you know, they weren't going for inside trips. These guys were going for freaking football tackles. They're going for football tackles. That's like, I'm basically gonna just determine like what the Spartan style would look like just based on watching people spar in the movie 300 in the training camps. Dude, these guys had like football tackles and that's it. They'd football tackle me, which is not something that's very technical. I'd be able to meet him head on with a freaking flying knee. With a flying knee right down the middle, or a freaking deep to the freaking solar plexus, or a freaking mean calf kick. Okay, so like, give me a fucking break about the Spartan skill set when it comes to MMA. All right, give me a break. If you put me back in the Spartan days, I'm basically like Muhammad Ali with the boxing technique that I have, and that's 2 years of rusty Muay Thai, shitty boxing. Vikings. Oh, yeah, let's talk about the Vikings. This is actually a difficult one because these Vikings would actually be pretty big. I'm pretty sure Vikings, even though they were kind of ancient, still compared to, this is like, many hundreds of years ago, still compared to like the Spartans, they were a lot bigger than Spartans. These are people from, the Nordic regions, and you look at people in the Nordic regions now, Northern Europe, like they're all pretty tall. So these people would be big, and they all had the berserker moments. They literally saw red. Like, this is the epitome of the I see red style. So they'd have the I see red style. They would go into a trance. Maybe these guys would take drugs to hype them up. I don't know what they were taking back in the day. But I could imagine them gathering around the fire, hooting and hollering, and maybe taking some sort of upper ayahuasca to get them all hyped. Again, I haven't really studied what these guys would take, but you're probably talking, again, test levels probably around the 2000 level compared to modern people. It'd be a tough one. I'd probably put the Vikings. Now, again, could they deal with calf kicks? That's the thing. Could they deal with a good solid calf kick? Because I could imagine a Viking running at me, yodeling, blood-curdling screams, and as long as I'm calm and I'm in here, what's he gonna do? Okay? What's the most likely outcome? It's probably going to be I could see him jumping. It'd be like the least technical type of attack ever. Whereas the Spartans would try to tackle you like a football player. The Vikings. Oh, man. The Vikings, on the other hand, though, these guys, I could see it's like a movie. It looks badass in a movie, but in real life, it'd be like, what the fuck is this? I could just step to the side and get out of the way. The Vikings, though, would like freaking jump on top of you. They would jump in the air with a freaking angry man face. And I don't know, they try to freaking get on top of you and like beat you up or something and ground it. They probably had some good ground and pound. Because I'm just picturing like a freaking muddy Northern European turf and someone getting their head smashed in. So it'd be tough, but you step out of the way. You give them a little bit of a counter calf kick, slice them low to the ankle. And the next thing you know, they're stinging. Land a couple more of those calf kicks. Those guys didn't know how to throw calf kicks. They weren't even fucking thinking about that stuff. Hey, all I'm saying is that can limit the movement. Again, these guys were tough. They were strong. They were going for the kill. But we're talking about an MMA fight. So again, no eye gouging, no berserker killing or anything like that. MMA rules. They have to TKO you or they have to submit you. Maybe these guys would be able to get the ground and pound finish. I'll put the Vikings in the C tier. Vikings would be tough. Let's get on to the next one. Let's go with the Cowboys from the salty Spitoon. Okay? The Cowboys from the salty Spitoon. Man, I'm going to put these guys in the I'm going to put these dudes in the C tier. These dudes would be harder to beat because I feel like we're talking about guys in the 1800s, the Wild Wild West 1800s, right? And these are the gunslingers. These are guys that probably knew how to throw hands. They knew how to put up the dukes. I think this is probably hundreds of years after people figured out how to throw a punch. Like, again, I could just imagine the Spartans just tackling you and freaking clubbing you with like, hammer fists. That was their technique back in the day. But these guys, I had a feeling they knew how to punch because you see these old 1800s photos of these dudes with mustaches with the wide stance. And these guys probably had test levels at a freaking 2000 level. And they were putting up the dukes like this. So these guys would probably have a similar style. They'd roll up their sleeves. They'd have the bounce, the pep in their step. And they'd be tough. They'd have a granite chin. These guys would be tough to beat. I think it depends. And also, people were bigger in the 1800s than they were in the Spartan days. So, I'm about 5'8", 175 pounds. I might actually be on the shorter side. So maybe some of these guys would have the height and reach advantage, and maybe they would be like 200 pounds, a couple of them. I think it'd be tough. But these guys probably wouldn't know how to deal with low kicks. Again, we're talking an MMA fight. I could low kick him. I could stick and move. I could wrestle. Let's talk about the wrestling. I don't know, man. Again, the wrestling technique in the Salty Spitoon days was probably just slam someone up against the freaking bar wall and try to club their head into the freaking wall. Whereas I have a judo trip in my arsenal. I'd be able to go with, a hip toss or something like that. And I have a double leg. I have a single leg. I have inside trips. And these are shitty inside trips. These are like the freaking novice level inside trips. But at least I'd be able to use those. It'd be kind of a close fight. That's just because I have the modern day technique. And again, what people don't understand is if you have a couple of years of kickboxing training and you're like, average size, a couple years of kickboxing training and a little bit of jiu-jitsu, you're probably one of the most dangerous humans that ever walked the earth if you're put on earth like 2,000 years ago. So, you'd still be pretty dangerous in the 1800s. But let's get on to the next one. Samurais. Now, these guys were tricky because these are the guys that were cocky and they have all the tricks in movies and, they do the spinning. They're like the trick shotters of the real world. They're like the ones that are doing trick shots. It's just they did it with swords. These are the type of guys to take the sword off of their back, toss it behind them, and show you that they're about to show you a real fight, right? To try to show off, like, I don't even need a sword. But I think that, honestly, the samurais would be slim pickings for me because, again, what would samurai technique even look like? I mean, I understand a lot of martial arts originated in Japan, but, I mean, what is this? We're just going to toss out the elbow and flick the wrist? Like, I don't know if that's enough. I think that I might be able to, just with a good solid jab and low kicks, be able to take some of these samurais out. So, in an MMA fight, grappling, jiu-jitsu, jab, stick and move, low kicks, I think that I would be able to get the better of these guys that would just be, again, doing the hayas, and I don't know what they would be doing, but I don't think they would necessarily beat me in a fight. So I'm going to put the samurais in the B tier. I think they're more beatable. I don't think they would necessarily be the toughest bunch. But let's get on to the next one. Let's go with the Medeival Knights. Now, the Medieval Knights were a tough one because sort of like the Salty Spitoon guys, sort of like the samurais, they're in that era where, their test is peaking at about 2000 compared to the modern guys of today that, grew up drinking the modern tap water. But at the same time, was their technique even better than the Salty Spitoon Cowboys? I don't know if their technique was better. What would the Knight even do? What would the Knight even do? What would he do? The Knight would basically do the same thing as the fucking... I just have like this vision in my head of ancient people. The way that they would fight hand-to-hand combat would just be like throwing a big winging arm punch and like tackling you into a wall to try to hit your head off the wall. That's basically what a Knight would do. They would tackle you on the ground, and instead of ground and pound, they would probably just take your head and try to bounce it off the freaking... the grass, or maybe a little bit of ground and pound. So these guys, I think I'm going to put them in the same tier as the samurais. I just don't know if technically they'd be able to hang. But let's go with the 90s guys. Let's go with the cans in the 90s. The cans in the 90s. They're tough. They are training. These guys had like backgrounds in an individual martial art. Modern people are a lot bigger than samurais, so like, they'd be around my size too. So it's not like I would have like the size advantage. Probably the cans in the 90s would have a little bit better skill set than just a couple of years of rusty kickboxing. So I'll put the cans in the 90s, like the guys in Pride, around my weight class. I'll probably put them at like the F tier or the D tier. Because I think that if you were to put me in the 90s, I'd at least be an unranked guy. I'd at least be unranked in Pride. Okay? I'd be an unranked guy. I might not be fighting for the belt. I might not be competing with the best of the best, like Takanori Gomi and whatnot, but, I'd at least be his introduction to the promotion. I'd at least be his introduction. I'd be like a can in the 90s, which, the can days. A couple years of rusty Muay Thai, there was really no one even competing back then. You could probably go big time, but either way, I think these guys beat me. I'll put them in the D tier. Let's go with the modern day UFC fighters. Modern day UFC fighters, I'm gonna put myself in the below F tier. I'll leave. There's no F tier. I'll say below F tier. I've probably got no shot against any of these guys. A couple years of rusty Muay Thai is not gonna save me. I'm nowhere near good enough to beat any of the modern day UFC fighters, so I'll put that in the below F tier. Unless you're like the chiniest fighter, you're about to get cut and you've been knocked out 4 times, and you happen to be a flyweight, then maybe then I've got a shot. But I need to do some more training. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone else? Is there no one else? Maybe Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs be tough. That'd be tough to beat a Navy SEAL. Probably gonna put a Navy SEAL in the probably the D tier, just because you never know. Maybe these guys haven't actually done any like Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu, and maybe they've just been, I don't know what they do in Navy SEAL hand-to-hand combat training. They probably don't do a lot of hand-to-hand combat, but they're tough. They're really strong mentally, and they would have like the crazy icy red ability, and maybe they'd be able to get the better of me. They'd probably have the wherewithal to throw some elbows. They probably know how to hit a rear naked choke. Probably gonna put these guys in the D tier. I just have to win based on skill. Based on skill, okay? I'm probably gonna have to win this based on sticking and moving. Or landing a big meaty hook. Because they're tough to beat. They're tough to beat. Any special ops people these days would be tough to beat. So, I'll put them in the same group as Cans in the 90s. Just Cans in the 90s. Cans in the 90s. That's basically the level of skill that the Cans in the 90s had. Was similar to that of like your average modern day mercenary that doesn't really get into the weeds on like jiu-jitsu technique and wrestling and takedown defense. They're just learning the very basics. Like, here's how to hit a rear naked choke if you get there. Here's how to hit an arm bar if you happen to find it. And here's how to throw a couple of 1-2s. That's probably what the extent is. Okay? So, yeah. I'm definitely putting them in the mix. I'm definitely putting in the mix in the D tier. This is the stupidest. This is like the epitome of, I'm sorry, it's late, I'm tired, I don't know what other content to make. And I thought I would go from the members stream where we were talking about this to the real stream. It's just a fun video. We're having fun. We're having fun. Let me try to think of some other warriors. Maybe I'll do an animal tier list, like what kind of animals I could take in a fight. Maybe I can make a part 2 to this someday. But anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Until next time.